Hey YouTube, I've completed all the pressure testing on the fuel lines and I pressurized them back at the fuel tank and kept line pressure on each of the lines as I tested it. And then went joint to joint with a spray bottle with some soapy water and just made sure there was no leaks. I had a pressure gauge set up on the inside. I basically took the braided lines, disconnected them, then set the pressure gauge up on those. And now I put the suspension back together again, just making sure everything looks good and fits properly, which it seems to. The fittings that I used, I basically took an AN-6 fitting that converted it to National Pipe Thread and just used a standard chuck, which then I just took my line set or my shop pressure hose and hooked it up and just kept line pressure on it. First I started at 20 psi and was conservative and checked it all out, and that showed pretty much any anomaly or leaks, and then I drove the pressure up to 40 psi. The lines will be operating somewhere around 14 psi, so should be all set. This is the other fitting I used. I just put my fuel pressure gauge for the high pressure side on this port. This is a 1/4 inch National Pipe Thread to an 1/8 inch to convert for the fuel line pressure gauge. So checked it all out, and now once the car is all back on its suspensions, pretty much at its ride height that it's going to be at, I fine-tuned my pinion angle and my transmission output shaft angles, making sure that I've got equal and opposite angles at both ends. So the tail shaft on my transmission is at 4 degrees downslope, and my pinion angle is at 4 degrees upslope. And then I measured the angle, the working angles at each of the universal joints. Ideal perfect world would be at 1 degrees. I'm at 0.9 degrees. So it's at 3.1 is my drive shaft. So you take your drive shaft angle, subtract it from your angles at the pinion and at the transmission, and you come up with your working angle at the U-joint. Universal joints do not want to be at 0. The maximum would be 3 degrees. Perfect textbook would be at 1 degrees. It's important because the roller bearings or the needle bearings in those U-joints, they need to be engaged with some force so they're actually working and staying lubricated. Otherwise they will seize up and your U-joint will have a short life. So right now it's set up as close to 1 degree. It's like, again, it says 0.9 degrees. And I don't know if I did a quick sketch. So bear with the art here. This is my rear differential. It's heading up at 4 degrees. My transmission output shaft is sloping down at 4 degrees. The drive shaft between is at 3.1. So you take your 4 degrees, subtract 3.1, and you end up with 0.9 degrees. Again, optimum is 1 degree, so we're pretty darn close. And what I use for measuring those, and there's a multitude of things out there, but just a simple angle finder. I use a digital one. I also have a regular old school angle finders. You can use a style like this. Digitals, for what I use, was pretty accurate. So this will just tell you. And then when you're measuring your transmission output shaft, you'd need a transmission yoke like I have here, and then basically you have to decide what surface to come off of, and it's a machine surface would be better. It's hard to do this one-handed, but I put a straight edge across and held it, and then put my angle finder on and measured the angle that way. That should give you a pretty good indication. You can also, if you have room, measure your harmonic balancer on the front, the pulley on that. That'll give you also another pretty good indication of your alignment for your propeller shaft. But it's best to check it at the transmission. So, and then you do the same at the pinion yoke. Find a machine surface, ideally, that's going to be true on both sides. I would not come off the top here because it's a cast. It may not be that precise. So anyway, that's where I'm at now. I've got everything aligned, and hopefully I can start doing my exhaust system. I want to make sure everything is set up properly. So I have to build that whole system custom. Anyway, that's the update. Thank you guys. Have a good day.